Welcome to Jabara's Spoken Word on the 6th of October 2021. And tonight we're doing the second part of Colm Scully's fabulous poetry film workshop. It's absolutely brilliant, we all know that. He's been making poetry films for about 6 years. Recently, his poetry films have been shown at Fastnet Film Festival, Indie Cork Film Festival, and soon to be shown at Dublin Short Film Festival. He's had poems published recently in Cyphers magazine, Crannog magazine, and Philosophy Now. And as we say here in Cork, there's only one Colm Scully. So let's go, Colm.
Thanks, Catherine. So we'll dive right into it. We have 7 poems were sent into the competition, and we have 6 others then as well. So we have 13 poems to get through, poetry films to get through. So it's, you know, by loads of people, a lot of them, most of them collaborations. So it's going to be really interesting. So I'll start off with just if anyone has any questions, they can put them into the chat. And Mose, you're going to kind of look at them, aren't you? Just monitor them. And we can take questions whenever, really, because everybody's going to have a chance to talk about their films. I'm going to start off with the first film is by Anton. Anton sent in a lovely film. So it's a poem he wrote, and he got some footage from Carl Sagan, Carl Sagan's website, Cosmos, and he linked them together. And it's a very nicely made, very subtle love poem, really. And I'm going to play that now and then. Anton, do you want to say a few words about it there before we go? Because that's kind of for these are the 7 poems now that were sent in for the competition. So Anton's is the first 2-minute poems. Anton, do you just want to say a few words about it there first?
Well, I hope it speaks. Can you hear me? Because I hope it speaks for itself. Because I'm sorry, we've got a technical problem here. Okay, because we had 2 computers going in the same room. I hope it's a sonnet that I wrote and was published, and I took the idea of the space poem that you showed us, Colm, and I thought that my little sonnet might work well. And because it was based on the blue dot, I went to Cosmos Studios and found a lovely segment of film with a Carl Sagan voiceover, which didn't suit me at all. And so I speeded up the film, and I used a clip of the sound that you gave us from your workshop, and I used that. And then when the music stopped, I felt I didn't want. I then read the poem with the imagery in silence, because it moves into interstellar space and focuses on the dot. I had thought also, after the poem is spoken, to let it run for another 1.5 minutes, but it would have become too long, and you have a 2-minute limit on this. So it might be worthwhile for people afterwards, if they like the poem, to log on to Cosmos Studios, the blue dot, and turn the volume down and just follow the animation, which I found very effective. And it is a love poem. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I had a great deal of fun putting this together, and I think I've got the bug now, Colm. So thank you for that, or no thank you for that.
Thanks, Anton. Here we go.
Can you, Colm, there?
Here we go. I'm going to play it there now.
constant. When Voyager on the verge, in the black of interstellar space, turned itself around to face an alignment of planets in our system, it sent us back the image, a postcard from the edge. Earth is a blue dot, a fragile atom suspended in a sea of dark matter, and all that dark energy hurtling the manifest and the hidden beyond the limits of gravity, beyond all that science held true. Yet take one constant as given. It binds my heart to you.
Gorgeous, Anton.
Everybody was able to hear that properly and see it properly today. Yeah, that was lovely. Thanks, Anton. We'll go on to the next now, and this is Lineage by Mich, Maroney and Mona Lynch. Mitch is online anyway. I'm not sure if Moana is on. And this is a lovely nature poem, I would say, very professionally put together. And I love the monochrome footage as well. Mitch, do you want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, thank you. I really wanted to work with Mona because I feel a real affinity with her poems. She's a wonderful poet. She sent me 3 poems, and I felt it would actually be wrong to use the 2 longer poems that she sent me because they're actually perfect in themselves. But the shorter one was the result of another project we worked on together, a fractal poem project. So I thought that would really work. So that's the one I used. The title is taken from the poem and refers to the relationship between 2 women poets, giving and taking from one to another. I made it very quickly. My mother was in hospital and I had to get back to England, so I really threw it together very, very quickly because I wanted to get it done. We'd be discussing a DNR order, actually. It was all in my mind as I made the film, and in retrospect, the word lineage seems to have a greater import in that it made me think of mortality and family, actually, as well as you know, the lineage between 2 women poets. So that was quite interesting looking back on it. The film starts in the morning with the raucous sounds of a radio being tuned. It's a nod to the word juxtaposition. I wanted to use that word rather than collaboration. I thought it was a bit more interesting. It takes you on a journey along a path and through the day to the evening, and it ends very quietly. When I start a film or poem, I play around with words and images and sort of edit, chip away, make changes as I go along until it feels right. None of this is done particularly consciously or with any big ideas in mind. I started by taking the words from Mona's poem and arranging them in a longer, more linear structure down the page. This makes it easier to see in terms of images and film structure. When I use the term playing around, people sometimes think I'm being frivolous. I don't think playing is frivolous. It's a form of liberation for me, of letting things happen. You become far less self-conscious, and this allows whatever it is that needs to be expressed room to breathe, I feel. Without thinking too much, I began to put the images and words together. I used film I'd already taken and took some new footage along the fern path and the wind and the dark trees. And it was only really afterwards that the true meaning of the poem began to reveal itself. It was really interesting. I feel it speaks of time passing, mortality, a reckoning, 1, 2, 3, tick tock tap, of how humans are an intrinsic part of nature. Accident and synchronicity, as well as conscious choice, will play their part. The sounds of the heartbeat at the end was an accident. I had noticed, I'd spliced several short clips together, and the sound they engendered sounded like a faint heartbeat. So I really liked that. It was an accident, but I left it in. I thought it would make a good ending, so I left it. It also reinforces the idea of the human being part of a greater whole. I don't feel the images I use are illustrations. I like to think of the words and images as having equal weight in reinforcing the meaning of the work. And interestingly, it was in reviewing the film for this presentation that another aspect of the word lineage presented itself. I'm really affected by particular lines in poems, and as I watched the film, the line "How time has ticked to heaven around the stars" came to mind. I feel that some of the lines from the film sort of had a link to this line from Thomas's poem, the ticking clock, raindrops tap, fading sun into a dreamless sleep, and in the idea of the natural world running through our veins. And there's a lineage in poetry that sometimes we're not aware of until we start writing poems. So it was very interesting actually to think of that line of Thomas's poem in relation to this film. That's it really.
Thank you, Mitch. And you're going to have another poem later, a poetry film later. So that's we'll be talking to you again, and I'll share the poem now, and we can enjoy it.
I live in a lineage of shapes. Watch. Ferns uncurl. Musky fungus underfoot. Steps 1, 2, and 3. Tick tock. Tick tock. The clock. Tick tock. Raindrops tap. Raindrops tap. Fading sun into a dreamless sleep. Lungs breathing like a tree. Lungs breathing like a tree. Breathing. Breathing like a tree. The tree. Tree.
Thank you for that, Mitch. That was lovely. I kind of thought it was an environmental poem, really. Would I? Is there a sense of that in it?
Oh God, yeah, very much so. You know, I like to think of you know, the human being part of nature. So yeah, it is. I would say definitely an environmental poem too, which links with the other poem. And we're going to see later on.
Excellent. So the next person. No, this is great. I don't have to do much talking. And actually, there's actually 6 poetry films. So as people can see, there was a lot of work to put these together, you know, and it's great for everybody who got in their films. The next one is Mary Tighe. Is that the right pronunciation, Mary?
Hi, Tighe. Hello,
Tighe.
Mary Tighe is my name.
Tighe. Sorry, Mary. I wasn't sure how to pronounce it.
No, of course.
Do you want to say something about your film?
Yeah, so just want to say hello first and introduce myself. My name is Mary Tighe. I actually lived in Cork for 10 years from 2002 to 2012, but I live in Galway now. I'm originally from Galway, and my better half and the love of my life, who's a little camera shy, who might pop over and say hello in a second. He is a poet. He's back in college as a mature student, studying creative writing, and mainly as a lockdown project. He started a YouTube channel putting up poetry videos on the iPad that he bought me for Christmas. And so just basically taking the only entertainment that we had during a lot of the pandemic was going out and going for walks and often would take just footage and video clips, and he would use those in his videos. So he has a YouTube channel where he shares all of that. So I've been interested in helping and doing some of that as well. So that's why I was really interested in the workshop. So so Cormac gave me a poem of his to use. It's called The Business, and it's basically a poem about his suspicions of what's it about, Cormac? Sorry. He says the flutes and suits, his suspicion about big business, and maybe that we have been doomed by some of these big businesses. It has a lot of imagery about the sky, about air, about sun. So I thought it'd be very good to use kind of that type of imagery in the poem. And all of the clips were done on my iPhone out the living room window using the time-lapse function on an iPhone camera. So all of last week, we had some lovely sunrises in Galway. Even though it rained quite a lot, the mornings were lovely, and I did manage to get a good few lovely time lapses, and I tried to arrange them in a way that kind of reflected some of the meaning of the poem. And I hope you all really enjoy it.
Thanks for that, Mary. It was really nice, and you could see that it was very professionally put together, and the sound quality and everything was very good in it. And I love the shooting star in the end. So here goes. We'll watch it now. Sorry, just hold it a second. I'll be back with you now. No, there was just one thing about that video, and I just made the wrong choice there on the screen. Which one was it again? No. Basic.
I also sent you a link to the YouTube channel, so maybe that would
Yeah,
work if it's really stuck.
No, it's all right. I think I know what I'm doing now. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna play it there now.
The business. Cancer's choice. Economy spool nerves open. Animals bay in seizure. Crows ply currents of air. Forests bind to coming rusts. Days sheer with phobic cracks. Time to frauds and growing wilts where forever stands hidden. Broken concrete in hands seeding disease. Money over love. Bones with leathered rims, salt earth and peristalsis. Tout scrambling lines of pimps. Grift in draining, grout the hills, tile the sickly clay angled into droughted winds. Fists becoming palms, too late, to embrace under a sun that will hide the world with burning. Parches of sand with tongues of roulette weather drowning its way back, dreaming dead with greed that bore them.
Did everybody hear that okay? You could hear it okay, because it was something about, it must have been filmed in 4K or something, and Zoom wouldn't let me play it. Maybe that was it, but I hope you heard it okay. Latrinavox is the next one from Lauren Cavanagh. Lauren, do you want to tell us something about this? We know the poem, but do you want to tell us something about the poetry film?
Yeah, so I wanted to do a film, but I was lacking all types of inspiration, and I was just looking through my gallery and I stumbled across those photos that I had taken of bathroom graffiti, which I then used to make a found poem. And then I was thinking like, maybe I could do a whole poetry film that is just about this interesting text in the bathroom graffiti, and actually would make the poem make a lot more sense when the two were combined, because kind of out of context, that's a strange poem to read out loud. It's a bit fun, but yeah, so in the end I had so much fun doing it. I want to make another one already.
Sorry, no, Mary, did I play the whole poem there, or did I miss some of it?
Yeah, you missed the beginning of it. Yes.
Sorry, I apologies. Now I'll go back and I'll play that again. Sorry, sorry, Lauren, and then I'll play yours.
No
Is that
bother.
okay?
No bother.
Because I just realised that there now.
The business. Their slogans, parade rooms, sealed within a rotting life, aloof where echoes grail in ageless loss, drolling old regrets in blood and ash. Because of them, our air will grit a skittering world to strangers, as fear cancers choice, economy spool nerves open, animals bay in seizure, crows ply currents of air, forests bind to coming rusts, days shear with phobic cracks, time to frauds and growing wilts where forever stands hidden, broken concrete in hands seeding disease, money over love, bones with leathered rims, salt earth and peristalsis, tout scrambling lines of pimps, grift in draining, grout the hills, tile the sickly clay angled into droughted winds, fists becoming palms, too late, to embrace under a sun that will hide the world with burning, parches of sand with tongues of roulette weather drowning its way back, dreaming dead with greed that bore them.
And that's Cormac at the end waving.
So apologies again there, Mary.
No, thank you very much.
Lauren, we'll dive right into yours there now. And yours, there
Cool.
is no...
Thanks.
Sorry?
Oh, I just said thanks.
Latrinavox. Collage is lonely. Any League of Legends players? This is the sign you asked for. My parents think nothing is good enough. Up the Ra. Birds aren't real. Don't vote the same pricks back in Feb 8th. I have an eating disorder. I just want to feel beautiful. Birdwatchers everywhere are shook. Ross Mulcahy is hung like a horse. Repeal. My boyfriend says he loves me and I'm scared. I don't understand why he would. Any bags? My boyfriend says he loves me, but will find me more sexually attractive if I was thinner. Love yourself first. You are yours. Tomato! Fuck him, then leave him. I broke up with him. Yay! I cheated on my boyfriend and now I'm pregnant. We are not retreating, just advancing in reverse. And the bullying continues in college. Any hash on tick? Any bags? I fuck up everything. YOLO with a line through. You live every day, you only die once. Why can't my lonely ass find a decent man? Beyonce is ruining music. I might be pregnant and the fellas from Kerry, 50-50 is gonna be a leprechaun. Bullying is in your head. Change your attitude. Nobody knows I'm trans, but I'm still terrified using the ladies. Coronavirus more dangerous than we're being told. I'm falling in love with my friend, but I can't tell her. This is your bathroom, and anyone who thinks otherwise can feck off. Yes, you are. You are enough. Embrace your weirdness. I love Beyonce.
That was great, Lauren. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Colm.
The next one is Steps from Alison Glennie. Alison, do you want to? This is a more abstract, avant-garde, I suppose, look at a way of producing a film, a poetry film. Do you want to chat to us about it?
Unmute myself. Yes, I can be heard now, can't I?
Yeah.
Yes, I use different lenses to achieve more abstract images, and I like recording my own sound effects and things as well. So I had recorded some of those clips in the preceding year during lockdowns. I took up the challenge when you said that quite often poetry films were collaborations and that it was less usual for the poet to be the filmmaker. I never think I'm competitive, but as soon as you said that, I was like, yes, I have to write the poem as well. I have to write the poem and make the film. So I did, and I was under a time constraint because I had another film to work on as an actor. But I did it. What else? I haven't said very much. That's enough from me.
Yeah, it's a lovely COVID poetry film.
Oh yes, thank you.
Hope at the end, a lovely bit of hope at the end. So and looks like we're there now at this stage. So that's good. And I'll show it there now.
Friday the 13th. Car parks emptied. Traffic stilled. Doors closed. Phone lines are humming. No neighbours come. Screens flicker. Brains fog. To wear gloves or not? Face to cover. Sanitize. Specs missed. Venturing farther. Stepping apart. Essential. Afeared. Atmosphere clearer. Birdsong closer. Victory. Digging.
Thank you, Alison. That was lovely. And you know, it's we're actually on to the last one now, and this is a latecomer, and this is from Kuala Lumpur. So Julian Matthews, Julian, you used Biteable.com, which is an app I'm not familiar with, but you used that to make this film. Do you want to talk to us a little bit, Julian, if you can, unmute there, just about your film?
It's a bit rough. I just put it together from the stock photos that were available on Biteable. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Well, welcome from, and it's a lovely poem as well. So I'm going to play it now. I have to go into YouTube for this. I don't have it on file, but I'm going into YouTube to do this.
Parallel lives. Maybe we knew each other in past lives. I was a horse. And you a unicorn. This is why our cants in this world are like canters. We are maybes trotting in different directions. We are don'ts galloping across the horizon. As if the grass were grander on the other side. Maybe we were insects, I was an ant. And you a dragonfly. You hovered then paused on a leaf. I scampered around you like a frantic puppy. Nipping lightly, then backing off. Until you peered at me with those googly eyes. Searching for some reciprocation. Then you flew off. Maybe we were the tortoise and the hare. I, slow and steady, you, fast and frenzied. There was never a race. Only a blur glimmer of my ancient face as you sped by. Then I was run over, and you were gone. Maybe we were the Sphinx and the Pyramid. I was pointy-headed and looking up. You were regal and lounging serenely looking yonder. I was burning in the sun. You were tanning after a run. And then the sandstorm hit us and we were buried under and long forgotten. Maybe we would never, ever meet again. In the next life. And the life after that life. And the life after that life. Maybe these fleeting moments are all we have. No pharaonic beginnings, fairy tale endings, or Aesopian also rans. Just these poems. And our cans.
That was lovely, Julian. I love some of the lines there. Aesopian also rans. That's a great one. And it's just interesting to see the different ways you can make a poetry film. You know, you can do lots of. You know, you don't have to use your own images. You can use stock images as well, just like Julian did there. Mose, before I announce who I picked as the winner, is there any questions from anyone?
I haven't seen questions. I just seen, you know, lots of well-deserved compliments.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who would like to ask anyone? You can just stick up your hand or unmute yourself and speak. Any questions? I mean, you know, I'm quite stunned by the whole. Oh yeah, Alison wants to say something. Okay.
Yes, I would like to ask a question because I was listening to what Colm said during the first workshop about the sound quality. And so I took that on board, and well, I realized that you don't all have sons with a recording studio, but I do. So I went along there to do the audio because I knew that I wanted to have a good microphone, and I'd be really interested to know how the other examples were recorded. Or perhaps that's too long an answer. Perhaps that requires too much.
Too much. Well, it's a very good point. You know, I mean, the sound is. I think the sound you know, if you get the sound bad, it's very hard to get it back. You know, to recover the poetry film. That's kind of my opinion.
I think Mary is waving her microphone.
Yeah, she's showing us something.
You want to unmute Mary and speak?
I think we'd have got the hang of it at this stage. Yes, so this is Cormac's Blue Yeti microphone, sorry, that he uses, that I borrowed. So that's, you get really good sound out of it. The first two poems he did were just out of a headset or something like this, and there was no comparison between the sound between this, something like this, and something like this. But you know, 90% of the time it just looks like a piece of art in the corner of the living room. So
that's very, very, very helpful.
If I could pitch in here as well, I'd be delighted. I'm actually a sound editor by trade. It's my job. So when Mum asked me to collaborate on a poem with her, I took it as a kind of a personal stance to do as good sound as possible. But with regards to the best mic on the market that you could get yourself that would last a long time, give you a really good quality sound, and is prime for recording in an area that you don't have a studio, because not everyone has access to a great soundproofed space. The Shure SM7 is a really good one, or the MV7. So it's a podcast microphone. It's easy to set up, and it's reasonably cheap considering how good a quality of microphone it is. A lot of professional podcasters use it, and it can be plugged straight into your laptop if you use USB, but it can also be connected to an audio interface by XLR as well for a more stable connection. So that's a really good one to get if you want a budget microphone that's a professional standard. And also, I just wanted to say one more thing about the quality of the audio that was submitted for like all of the poems, because I was listening on my the ones I use for like all of my professional work, and they were all really, really good. But I think that an extra step could be taken with all of them with regards to post editing. So noise reduction would be a big thing, because the thing is, it's great if you're listening on laptop speakers because everything blends in because you've got a whir of the laptop. But when you're listening in an isolated space, a couple of extra crossfades and stuff like that do wonders to audio, because you can fool the ear if you know how. But they were really lovely to listen to. I enjoyed all of them anyway.
Thanks for that, Isabel and Mary. And that was a brilliant question, Alison, because we got a lot of information there.
May I ask Julian, are you still there?
Yeah.
Hi. Can you tell me, because I think the voice that you used, the voiceover, that is not your voice. I think it's a mechanical voice. Is that correct?
Yeah, I use a robotic voice.
Okay, so you, because the voice somehow inserted words that were not actually there, and that made it extra, was extra surreal. So how did you do that? How did you get the voice?
It's called Animaker.
Okay.
So you can choose the voice that you want. Okay. And you just put in your script, and it will read it for you.
Okay.
And then you can even choose, I saw you could even choose Welsh. You could even choose Indian. You can choose, they're speaking English, but with an accent.
Okay.
And then you can pause it, or you can do a few things there. You can give the guy a breath
Okay.
or pause.
Can you put
but it still sounds very.
It sounds a bit
It still
mechanical.
sound very mechanical.
Yeah, but in a way that I
Yeah.
like that because it makes it a bit surreal, or as if you're watching a science fiction film or something.
Yeah,
like that. The
true.
whole thing was really good. Would you
Very
put
good.
the name in the chat, please, of the program you mentioned?
Okay.
Thank you. It was really good poetry as well.
Okay, so we better move on, or we'll be here all night. So I know it was very hard not to pick winner, but I picked winner anyway. And you know, it's very subjective, so don't take it to heart, anyone. But I had to pick Lawrence because I thought it wasn't the prettiest poetry film, I must say, but it was very effective and very gritty. So I just I like that, you know, it was a kind of a reflection on a lot of the issues that preoccupy students and all of us, I suppose, at the moment. And it's a great poem anyhow, but you know, the actual footage you know, brought it to life again. So congratulations, Lauren.
Thanks very much, Colm. I feel like I've won an Oscar. That's great. Thank you.
Now we're finished that part of the evening, and thanks to everyone for sending in the poems. And next we're just going to go on to some other poems that I collaborated on and other people collaborated on, and show you them. And we're going to, the next 6 poetry films are actually all collaborations. I'm involved in a few of them. The first one is Mag's Creedon. Myself and Mags made this. Mags approached me there a good few months back this year, and we made a film called Stills, which is she wanted to make. She had a poem and a song and a drawing, and she wanted to combine them to make a poetry film. And it's based upon, it's a contemplation or an ekphrastic poetry film, really, on a painting that everybody knows, which is The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. So what I'll do, I'm going to show it there first, Mags, and then after you can talk about it for a while. Is that okay?
Thanks, Colm.
Clasping golden through time key, I see this first kiss, face grasped, twisted to your lips. An astral view as will I spend, Byzantine birds glance, tales and floral beds mosaic. To the arrow's view we gripped, toe-clawed precipice, intrinsic palmer necklocked. Stay and live our martyr love, succumb to this call. Be brave, for you and I are clean. Poppies and germander speed well. Use drink where peaches fell. I sink, Auburn where ravens dwell. sweet berries of the
Blossom
night,
caramel shall he have.
pure fruit, fresh delight. Breathe in this easy kiss of life. Breathe in this easy kiss of life. Breathe this easy kiss of life. For still love you.
Anyone have any questions? I mean,
Mags is going to talk about it for a little while.
Oh,
anyway.
okay.
Hi, I was kind of cringing because it went all staccato and the song was a bit crackled, but it was always smoother when we saw it before, Colm, you know. Thanks, Colm. I was with Paul Casey doing my creative writing second part with a peer review, put in a poem. I decided on the day I had nothing done, and I usually come in a flash of writing, so I looked up at the picture that I look up at every day over our kitchen table. And even though it's hackneyed as part of my life for 30 years and it reared my children, and I often looked at it and wondered, was it a very dark or a very beautiful image? In one way, I would look at it from the astral view, as if looking at it from the stars down. They're lying in bed, he's saying, stay another 10 minutes, and he's kissing her. And then another way I was looking at it, and he was on a precipice kneeling, and he was kind of really forcibly alpha male and dominating her in a very kind of predatory way, and she looks kind of ashen faced and drained. That's why I was saying he felt like a raven draining a peach. And I just saw it from the two dimensions, and I was trying to convey that, was it the kiss of life, the kiss of death, you know, and kind of just playing with that a little bit and trying to lighten it at the end. So I actually just started to write my poem, and the music came in, and I recorded the music quickly on that day, and I just started to write this piece, and I just did it, and I sent it to Paul, and he just said in the night when we did the peer review, Mags, that's a poetry film. So I'm a Luddite, so I approached our dear friend Colm. We always admire his poetry films, and he was very good to oblige me. He was patient with me, trying to visualize it. He did want to animate it, and I just thought he'd have an awful job animating it. So I said, just film me away. And likewise, I didn't know how to bring the painting to life, and I was in the cafe near the Rendezvous, and I was just talking to the two lovely servers, you know, I was trying to do this thing, and I said, hey, the two of you be perfect. And they said, yeah, we'll do it. And they came out to my house and Colm filmed the lovely Sophie Cohan and Kieran Cronin, who run a restaurant above in McCurtain Street. And that's basically it. But I do apologise because somehow or another Colm went in staccato.
Mags, that was only on your phone. I think it was perfect, wasn't it, everyone?
Because it was all stop and start.
No, that was it. That was your on your computer. It was perfect here, Mags.
Okay. So I must admit too that I wanted to do proper sound, and I record myself, but I went to Conor Sullivan, and I was very thankful. He's a beautiful gentleman. He works in Blarney, and he's a lovely musician in his own right. And I planned on him doing lots of work, and him playing the guitar. He persuaded me to go for it, and he wanted me to be on the Tighe. He says, no, Mags, poetry, when you sing it, because I have a habit of singing poems, it's a totally different form to regular songwriting, and it's kind of a poetic form. So it's all different pauses and things. And he said, work away. He left me off. So I thought Colm Colm and Conor were very good to me. Thank you. And my brother Willie John, check my Irish. Chinawil.
Thanks, Mags. Did someone have questions, Mose? Or any question from Mags?
I don't see questions here. Wait a minute. People do comments. So intense, the handwriting coordinated with the poem, a mirroring. Absolutely gorgeous, yes. Well, I personally really like the way it all mingled together. Was that you, Colm? Sort of, I mean, that was the most beautiful thing about it, I think. That you had the Irish undertone underneath the English words.
No, Mags, the sound, Mags did all the sound. She
Did she did all
recorded
the
that in the
sound?
sound
Really?
studio
Oh, okay.
with she recorded her song, and her sound person got her to do the Irish as well at the same time. So that was, and I just made the film really on top of it then.
Okay.
And we had a bit of fun filming the couple.
I did actually not know how to do it, and I had a big satin curtain, and I started to do applique and paint it, and I was trying to do the painting, and then I was trying to cut them into it, and I then decided to paint dresses, but on the day it was very organic, literally, because I spread it out and hoped for the best, because he was 6'5" and she was 5 foot nothing, and I cut them into the thing. I decided to just really free form the painting, then I wrap it around and make it a very real kind of a bed in the end, with bits of the design on their clothing. So it wasn't what I envisioned. When you film something like that, you just go with the flow, you know. And I said, you know, make it into more real tossed bed of chopped up painting.
Thank you, Mags. And we'll move on now to the next one, which is Stan Notte. Stan, everybody knows Stan. Stan is he writes brilliant poems using the titles from songs from different bands, and he in collaboration he makes poetry films, and he made this beautiful one is coming up now. It's called Mrs. Xavier, from the song titles of the Frank and Walters, and I'll play it first, Stan, and then you can give us a little chat. I think this was shortlisted for the Ovale competition back a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
One, two, three. Mrs. Xavier, after the Frank and Walters. I suppose falling out of love is an elegant chaos after all. And Frank's right. Talking about you isn't paradise. It's a never-ending staircase where high is low, 6 becomes 9, and restraint opens up landslides. But how can I exist if it's time we said goodnight? Must I learn to love myself? Forget you're the greatest? Hold on the ground while the world carries on looking for America? Or should I change my way of thinking? Surrender to win? Bake us a song? Cast away the idea that you would take me through this life on pathways lined with city lights, summer evenings, and miles of turquoise gardens. I suppose falling out of love is an elegant chaos after all. And Frank's right. You can't take too much notice of Humphrey when the last train home on Saturday night don't stop John and Sue making you feel guilty. Isn't it time for New York? Forget you're the greatest. Learn to love myself. Learn to love myself.
beautiful.
No, Stan, there's a lot of talented people besides yourself involved in that. It's one of my favourites of yours, I think, really.
Yeah, thanks. I see one of the questions there from Rosalin is that I do all the artwork. God, I wish. God, I wish. No, I didn't. I think the thing that interests me about this film is, it really is a collaborative piece. There's obviously my poem, there's music from Malcolm Upcott of The Lost Gecko. The artwork was done by Melanie, and the actual film was put together by Paddy O'Shea. The other thing that really interests me about is it probably took about 4 years to do it, which sounds insane. But we recorded the poem. The first time I ever recorded anything in the studio, recorded that piece with Malcolm. And then it was left alone for a while. And then I had an idea for a film when I did the Bowie one. Around that time, I kind of storyboarded 3 or 4 of the poems, and that was one of them. And I wanted to do an animated film. And it just dragged out. Then I had 2 or 3 people that I spoke to at different times that were interested in doing the animation, and each of them just kind of lapsed and didn't go anywhere. And then Melanie, who's a friend of mine, we did a deal where I had kind of storyboarded, and I gave her the storyboard and said, can you put some art together for that? And so she did the art. I don't know how many she did. And then I just gave them all to Paddy and said to Paddy, do whatever you want to do with them. That's the way I work collaboratively. I tend to hand things over and just say, do what you want to do. I kind of trust in other people's talents, and I know Paddy really, really well. And he asked for one extra piece. I can't remember which one it was. He asked for another painting, and Melanie did the other painting, and then Paddy did all the bits and pieces in the background and put it all together in a lovely manner. And I mean, I remember when I saw it first, because when Paddy sends you something, he always says, look, this is what I've come up with. If you want to change anything, let me know. And I didn't change a single thing. It's literally as he presented to me first time around. So yeah, it took about 4 years and a few serendipities and a few cul-de-sacs, but I was really, really pleased with it in the end. And you're right, it was screened at the Ovale, and it also placed 3rd in the Doolin's Writer Festival. I think 2018 as well. It could have been 2019.
I have a question here that was after the last film from Isabel Ronan about the editing software. Do you want to know that in general or specifically, Isabel?
I just wanted to know what brand of video editing software you were using.
I did.
It was actually about the previous film, Stan, but you got someone to do yours, didn't you? So
yeah, I wouldn't have a clue what it is. Paddy O'Shea, he's a professional filmmaker. So
I'll get on to you.
I would never know. I've seen it. I've seen it work, but no. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say. I'm not technical anyway. So, but the microphones that were being held up earlier on, I have one of them, but I have no idea what it's called. No idea. I'm not into like technical stuff. I ignore because it goes over my head anyway. Completely over my head.
Fair enough. No, Colm actually.
Yeah, I use Final Cut Pro for that, Isabel. I use Final Cut Pro always. Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And also, it appears to be Irish Poetry Month. D. Ellen, you said that. Happy Irish Poetry Month. Did anyone know that?
No.
Is that in the States? Well, thank you anyway.
Well, if it is in the States, let us know. We'd love to send stuff over. It's a massive audience over there. Massive audience. Can I just say one other thing, Colm? What I love about poetry film myself, and it's funny because I don't use that term very often, especially with my own work, because my own stuff is derived from song titles. I always refer to what I'm doing as videos. I like the idea that it's a music video, even though it's not. But it's amazing how many different styles and there's so many ways you can go at it. And we experienced that, Colm, when we were the judges together for the Ovale competition a couple of years ago. I mean, it is just like almost anything goes, which is what for me is what makes it great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. And we're on to something different now again. This is another one I collaborated on. You'll be sick of my collaborations, but this is with Sue Blue, Rosalin. Blue, but the story with this one, I went to Sue about this earlier in the year because there was a competition in Germany of poetry films for Goethe poems, and I said it was an opportunity. I knew Sue translated a lot of German poetry, And I thought that was an opportunity to work with Sue, and I knew she also loved poetry film. So we went and made this together. Unfortunately, the competition didn't get off the ground. It's going to happen next year, so but it didn't get off the ground this year. But it was great to make it anyhow, and it was a real learning experience for me as well. And I'm going to show it now, Sue, and then you can chat a bit about it. It's called Der Fischer. It's from the poem by Goethe of the same name.
Das Wasser rauscht, das Wasser schwoll.
The waters whoosh, the waters swell.
Ein Fischer saß daran,
Whereby a fisher sat,
sah nach dem Angel ruhevoll,
looked calmly after rod and reel,
kühl bis ans Herz hinein.
chilled deep unto his hand.
Und wie sitzt und wie lauscht,
And as he listens, as he sits,
teilt sich die Flut empor.
the floods are parting wide.
Aus dem bewegten Wasserrausch
And from the heaving water slips
ein feuchtes Weib
a
hervor.
maiden siren high.
Sie sang zu ihm, sie sprach zu ihm.
She sang to him, she spoke to him.
Was lockst du, meine Brut?
Why do you lure my spawn?
Mit Menschenwitz und Menschenlist
With human wits and human tricks,
hinauf in Todesglut.
up to the deadly dawn.
Ach, wüsstest du, wie's Fischlein ist,
If you knew the fish's bliss,
so wohlig auf dem Grund.
so peaceful in the sea,
Du stiegst herunter, wie du bist,
would swim down there just like this,
und würdest erst gesund.
and would get well and heal.
Labt sich die liebe
Do
Sonne,
not the sun and moon delight
der Mond sich nicht im
in
Meer,
the sea to see themselves?
kehrt wellenatmend ihr
And
Gesicht
seems their face not twice as nice,
doppelt schöner her.
breathed out by the wave?
Lockt dich der tiefe Himmel nicht,
Are you not drawn by the deep sky,
das feucht verklärte
the
Blau?
hallowed humid blue?
Lockt dich dein eigen Angesicht
The mirror of your face
nicht her in ew'gen
lure
Tau?
you to eternal dew?
Das Wasser rauscht, das Wasser
The waters whoosh, the waters swell,
netzt ihm den nackten Fuß.
and wet his naked soul.
Sein Herz wuchs ihm so
His
sehnsuchtsvoll,
heart with heavy longing filled,
wie bei der liebsten Brust.
like from his lover's call.
Sie sprach, sie sang,
She spoke to him, she sang to him,
da war's ihn
and
geschehen.
thus he just caved in.
Halb
zog sie ihn, halb sank hin.
She half pulled him, half he sank in.
Und ward nicht mehr
Was
gesehen.
never seen again.
Oh.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks a million. What an honor to show it here. Fantastic. Yeah, I was honored to be approached by Colm about it, about this competition. It was basically for Goethe's bicentenary, I think his birthday or something like that they wanted to celebrate, and due to the lockdown situation everywhere, they didn't have enough people sending stuff in. So and that was actually the difficulty as well, you know, having to create this film during lockdown. In fact, it was the 2K and then the 5K restrictions. In my first thoughts, I saw this filmed at Robert's Cove by the rocks along the side, and you know, I saw us getting into the water, as in one of us at least, and if not two, like me dragging him down, whatever. But all that had to be done closer by, and actually the whole thing for me started with researching a few Goethe poems. And I don't know why I researched so long, because the whole lockdown I used my time to actually translate some of the classic German poems that my grandmother used to perform in our kitchen, which I guess is one part of the inspiration for me doing spoken word performance, because she did them off the top of her head at age 75, you know, like until age 75 anyway. And I got great joy out of them because each of them told a story. And so it became very clear to me that I was going to do one of the poems by Goethe that she had done, which is Der Fischer, the Fisher. And so it started with translating that poem, and yeah, that alone is its own kind of artwork to look at, because I'm really trying to recreate the poem with its rhyme and its form and all the imagery in it and all the feeling in it and everything. So that's a big challenge, and I enjoyed that very much. And then after that, Colm said, look what you envisage. So I just kind of babbled off the ideas off the top of my head and wrote out like kind of a script of imagery that I could see. And we started from there and started researching images and clips and sound clips, and I pinged them to Colm. And we used a lot of that and built the film up from there. They're all free licensed clips and sound bits. So thanks to the internet for that. And then there was a few places where we felt we wanted to film, and we got Kieran happy, like we were happy to get Kieran McCartan as the fisherman. And like when he saw the first product, he was actually very he was inspired, but he said he really wanted to act that role that we'd asked him about, because it's like as it was, it needed to be evolved from where it was. And I'm glad we did it. We did it nearby here in Mahon along the Greenway by the waters, and got around all that. So it was lovely and I was so happy. I'm like Stan, I was so happy to be able to not have anything to do with the technology. I'm fine for researching, I'm fine for finding sound bits and stuff like that, and for putting ideas and visions together, but actually doing the technological work, I was so glad that Colm said, look, I'll volunteer. And then for the drawings, for the inserted drawings, like that came from last year's poetry film competition. Was it the winner, the film Colm? What was the film again that we kind of took inspiration from for the drawings?
It was actually an Irish woman, isn't it, from up in Dublin? I forget her name now.
Wasn't it Philly Speaks?
Yeah, Philly Speaks. You're right.
Yeah, and
she did something similar, so I kind of took a lead from her.
Yeah, she kind of did, like, it was more computerized than what we had, but like she kind of did drawing enhancements into the imagery that was part of the film. And so Colm actually went through all of the frames with me in it, and like, painstakingly drew me in so that I could step back a bit as the storyteller. It's I'm quite happy with the results still, I must say. In between, I thought maybe it's a bit full because there's so many layers in there. There's so many images and so many sound layers. But I'm still quite happy with it. And thank you so much for making it with me, Colm.
Oh. Thank you. And on to the next one. So we've only 3 left. You're very patient for sticking with all this, but 3 left, and this is the last one that I have any say in. This film is actually the second poetry film I ever made, and it was with Conor McManus. So what happened was, the first poetry film I ever made, it was like I was looking to make a poetry film, and Conor said he'd give me a hand. And you know something, it's great to have someone to work with you. And so then the payback was, the second one we made was Conor's poem. So this is Conor's poem, Crow, and this poem then was shortlisted for the O'Vale Film Festival as well, and one other film festival, which I can't remember, which I think was Rabbit Hearts in America. So I'm going to show it here, and then Conor will just chat for a little while about it.
I walked along the long shadows of the sun, the long shadows of a yellow frosty morning, along a shore of rocks and bottles and cans and seaweed, and the odd rat scurrying. Black thorns and briars and ferns grew from a hard red rock wall, dappled in white and yellow lichen and moss growing in the joints. The dogs sniffed in cracks and crevices of rocky barriers for rats. A black crow cawed from a branch on a leafless tree. He extended his shiny wings and they spread, and opened till I could count 5 single feathers, like 5 digits on the tips of each. He shuffled in a flutter and looked away out over my head. He pondered for a moment and another moment, and raised his wing and pecked under it. He pulled his head in and brought his 2 wings around until they touched. Then he put his head out and shook his body and rearranged his feathers, and his wings sat snug along his body, sleek and black and shiny. I wanted to say that my yesterday was a crow, and a half-blind dog. A crow and a half-blind dog, and a man shining the 2 bell buttons, and the knocker, and the knob on the big blue door, and sweeping out the tile porch at 2:45 precisely, every day, every day, every day. That's every day, crow, and watching and opening at 10 precisely, and closing at 3 precisely, every day, every day, every day. That's every day, crow. That's prayer, crow. But I opened my mouth and only a caw came out. The sun dimmed, the sky grew grey, and the mudflats dulled. I wanted to talk to him about the wind and where it came from, and where it might be going. Where does it go? Where does it stop? And I'd forgotten about the woman who had walked through me. And I wanted to ask him how he knew about the weather. He rose from his perch and circled effortlessly, gliding and dipping, and ascending and cawing, wings sleek and black and shiny. Tears came, big flat drops splatting black down into the swirl pools where the tide meets the river ripples, twisting corkscrew boring black holes down into the bed of the river, churning up dirt and rounding off the edges of rocks, dragging everything into the centre, bringing everything to one point.
Conor, do you want to just chat about that for a little while?
Yeah, sure. Can you see me? Am I on there?
You have no face, but we have your voice.
Okay, I don't know why that is.
You're there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks, Colm. Thanks for asking me along to talk about it. I think, like Colm was saying there, this is probably our second film that we made together, and we chose that poem, Crow. I had that's kind of a pared down version of a 4,000 word prose poem that I'd written over a period of about 3 days on a St. Patrick's Bank Holiday weekend. And I used to go out for a walk in the morning along that's down along the line out at Rochestown Road, and I used to go out for a walk there every morning with my dog, and I'd come back and I'd write for maybe about half an hour, and it just flowed for about 3 mornings, and I could leave it and come back to it. And then when we went to film, we went out and filmed out there, so it was kind of appropriate, and it worked well. I think there's sort of an integrity to the poem in that way. We sort of, I suppose we were winging it in a way, myself and Colm at the time. We hired out a camera from the Cork Film Centre and went out a couple of mornings and got the footage out there, and Ed Cashman helped us edit it, which was great. So it was a real good experience. And I suppose what I kind of learned from the whole idea of poetry films, and that was this idea of blending the visual and the spoken word. And it was important to me that the spoken word would come out and stand out, because the visual can dominate a lot. I find it dominate for me anyway. It sort of takes over, and you actually lose the poem. So for me, that was always a big thing when we were making films and working together, to try and ensure that the spoken word came through and was certainly equally as strong, if not stronger, than the film itself, than the visual. And I think that works in Crow, and I think it's well read by Colm. So yeah, that was kind of it. Is there any more to say about it? We filmed it. It must have been 2012 or 2013. Would it have been, Colm?
No, not that long ago. I think about 15. I think.
Okay, I probably wrote the poem in 2012 or 2013. Yeah. So, and we got it. It was shown in, was it Kiev Film Festival as well? Doolin, yeah. I think, in Kiev Film Festival. Yeah. So that was nice. It was nice to get sort of. There was a bit of life to it after we made it. So yeah, that was cool. Anything to add to that, Colm, yourself?
No, thanks for that, Conor. As I say, one of the points I'd make is that when you're starting off on these kind of things, it's great to have someone helping you with you, you know. So that was great. We'll move on. So we have 2 more, and the next one is Catherine. and Isabel, who've been so helpful online. And this is Catherine's poem. And I remember I was talking to Catherine earlier in the year, and she said one of her ambitions for 2021 was to make a poetry film, and she did it. It's called Policing Mary, and as I said, great sound quality. It's a beautiful poetry film, and I'll play it there, and Catherine and Isabel can talk a bit about it then.
Policing Mary by Catherine Ronan. Auntie Mary is a strange one, full of Irish me-aw. She will only suck berries from a cracked china cup. Her hairy chin runs all the way to her toes, and she wonders about the commas of the world, surrounded by semicolons. She calls them lulas. I think she means lunatics. We both feel the pull of the moon. Tides tickle every wall. There is no policing Mary. She prizes limpets and cockles, naked-handed from rocks. Refuses to go to mass. Crunches shells during the soaps. Calls for lavender at bedtime, whenever that is. Time is nothing. There are no sheets for Mary. She sleeps in 3 places. You never know where. There's no policing Mary.
I love the cat at the end, and also the quality of the video is superb, isn't it? What did you film it on?
So I don't know about the rest of you. My video was actually lagging hugely, so I'm not sure if that was just my internet connection or what. Okay, if it was good on your end, I'm happy. But what I used was Avid Media Composer, along with Pro Tools, because I get it with a bundle from Avid. For anyone that doesn't know, Avid is the company that deals with most of Hollywood sound and video editing. So I just, at the start of COVID, I decided to fork out and start getting the proper software to start working professionally, because I was doing it in college. And Mum then provided the fabulous foam and inspiration for everything that went on there, which is beautiful. The exact camera we used was a Canon camera that I got a couple of years ago in Argos. I got really lucky. It was like 300 euros, but I got it reduced down to like 100. And I bought a tripod online, which was a nice setup that we had going on outside, and it was a bit of an impromptu performance by Mum. She just happened to come out at one point like fully dressed up and was like, let's do it. And I was like, I love this, yes, let's go. And we videoed the entire thing, and using the footage and some additional stuff that I recorded then on the side. It was all pieced together in Avid Media Composer, which is it's kind of like, it's like the rival to Adobe in terms of editing software, but it's really great if you want to move to the next level beyond any of the stuff that's available for free online, any of the freeware that's out there, because that's a great place to start if you're thinking of doing it yourself, and then moving up to Media Composer later on, instead of diving straight in, because that's like diving into the deep end without ever knowing how to swim, or, you know, no armbands or anything. It's always great to start with the freeware before forking out for something that's really expensive, editing wise.
Catherine, do you want anything to add?
Just to say thank you to Isabel, and thank like it couldn't have happened without her, obviously, because I'm like Stan, I'm a technophobe. I sweat when it comes to technology. I just can't handle it. So I'm very lucky to have somebody in-house so expert in all things that I know nothing about. Can I just say, it's like the Oscars here tonight. It's absolutely superb. It's the best night on Zoom I've ever had. I mean, ever. In the 18 months, this is the best Zoom experience I've had. And I can say that honestly, hand on heart. What talent. Talent in the face. Talent. Brilliant. Great night.
That's interesting, actually. Thanks for that. It's interesting, Isabel, you said about the camera, the Canon, because the Canon SLR, I have a Canon, and I find that it's the video on it isn't great. Like the iPhone for me is a lot better, but as you can see, your video there was fantastic, the quality of it.
I think it was just usually, like, I'd find the same thing with Canon cameras, like they can be a bit iffy, but the reason we used it for this was because we had good lighting. We had a good stand to have it set up on, so nothing was rattling, because I find them really hard to just hold in hand, and they don't work well. And also it was good for the editing software I was using. I could like take the video and match it to the parameters I needed, so the quality like enhanced, you know, as best it could for Canon.
Yeah.
Which is why we used that instead of a phone camera, because we had kind of dimensions to work off, if that made sense.
Very good.
Sue Blue wants to know, what freeware would you recommend? I think that's a question for Isabel.
So I actually, before I was using Avid Media Composer, I was using like this really cheap one called like Cybermaster. I'll get the link to it there, and I'll put it in the chat for anyone that wants to check it out. It's really easy to use, and it's got some good like sound editing stuff that you can do kind of in, like, it's not the same as a proper sound editing software. Like, you'd have to go for something like Audacity for something like that. Don't worry, I'll put these in the chat in 2 seconds. I can't talk and type at the same time. But they're really, really good for not forking out huge amounts of money, starting off, finding out, is it something you want to delve more into, and then going for that if that's your next step. And as well, like, talking to people who know a little bit about it, or looking at it on YouTube is like a godsend. So Cybermaster or Cyberware, I'll get it and put it in the chat. And Audacity is great as well, but Audacity is solely for sound, whereas Cyberware or Master, I'll get it proper in 2 seconds, is great for video, because it's really easy to start off, and it gives you that baseline to move up to something a little more advanced later on.
May I ask, it might be a long answer, that's not the intention, but do you think there's a different approach to videos in your generation? People growing up with phones, I mean.
Yeah, hugely. So I come from a weird position in that I am in my 4th year of a music degree, and I have a different appreciation for sound than someone else my age who may not necessarily care what they're listening to their sound on. But it's very much environmental as well. Like, a lot of people won't go to the cinema anymore. They won't know what it feels like to get a big oomph off of a film or something like that, because they'll have experienced it on their phone or something, and it's a lot smaller, but it's a lot smaller in terms of visual, but it's also a lot smaller in terms of sound, and the whole experience is just smaller. So people wouldn't necessarily have the same kind of appreciation of a full kind of wraparound sound effect or something, or a wraparound, you know, visual sound effect or something. But I would say that people that care, that are my age, like for example me or something, people that really want to get the full experience, they know, they care, and they're looking at the best technology to get themselves to a position where they can like edit to a high standard and continue the kind of high standard going on anyway. But oh, also another point, I'll put this all in the chat, don't worry, I haven't got around to it yet. But if you're going to be editing yourself, I would always recommend getting a good set of headphones for yourself to test out what you're recording and what you're editing and what you're putting out there as best as possible. Because if you're like editing your stuff on bad ear equipment or in a bad surrounding where you can't control it, it's going to sound terrible to everyone else. So it's really important to get yourself a good set of headphones or something so that you know what's going on before anyone else does. But I'll put links to whatever I'm on about in the chat there.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for that. And there are on to our last film now, and I'm beginning to feel sorry for the people who just came in for the open mic. They're hanging on, but we're on to our last film, and we're back to Mitch again, and this is Dog Star Bling. And this, I think, Mitch, did you do all this on your own? Is this totally on your own? It's a beautiful avant-garde poetry film.
Yes, I did. It was part of a project that, in fact, Moser instigated at the One World Poetry Group we both belong to do with fractal poetry. I didn't really know what fractal poems were actually, and it's all to do with patterns in nature. The brief was that we'd use a word bank. Each of us in the group provided 12 words for the word bank, and we were to produce a poem as a result of this collaboration. So I decided just to use the absolute minimum, just the words. I wasn't going to use prepositions or you know, so I literally just used the words, and I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to just see what happened, really. It was very liberating. It was a really liberating way of working, actually. Just using the words with repetition and rhythm, and also it was a real. I decided to make a film poem. I'd never made a film poem before, so it was a real chance for me to just do it, really. And also the actual structure of the poem became quite interesting because I actually used the structure of a page on Word, so it sort of created its own structure in a way. So it was a very interesting project actually, and yeah, I had fun. It's all to do with climate change as well. The underlying theme was climate change, the planet, you know. So really, it's about what we're doing to the planet, and I wanted to make mine optimistic. I didn't want it to end on a really pessimistic note. So that's how it ends. It is an optimistic poem, I hope.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Mitch. So we'll finish with this. So our last poem, poetry film, and hope you enjoy.
Dog Star. Dog Star Bling. Star Bling, Star Bling. Star Bling silent. Silent. Silent, endless, illuminate. Endless, illuminate sequence. Sequence dream. Dream, sequence dream. 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 Dream journey. Dream journey coordinates. Journey coordinates. Coordinates void. 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 Void heavens.
Heavens, void, heavens. Heavens, symmetry, void. Void, symmetry, sequence. Sequence, void. Void, symmetry, sequence, stream. Sequence, stream. 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 Stream, symbiotic. Stream, symbiotic, crimson. Symbiotic, crimson. Crimson clouds collide. Crimson clouds collide. Clouds collide, revive, wild. Clouds collide, revive, wild. Wild air, revive. Wild air, revive. 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 Revive air. Revive fern. Revive petal. Revive soil. Revive roots. Roots, soil, petal, fern, air, roots. Roots revive. Revive. Revive rain. Revive rain. Rain. Rain, revive, rain. Revive rain. Rain, revive, revel, rain. Rain, revive, revel, rain. Revel, rain. Rain, revel. Revel, revel, revel. Revel, grass, silk, lips, trees, sun. Revel, grass. Revel, silk. Revel, lips. Revel, trees. Revel, sun. Revel, sun, revel, trees, grass, silk. Grass, silk, lips. Grass, silk, lips. Grass, silk, lips, trees. Trees revive. Trees revive. Revive, dwindle. Revive, dwindle. Dwindle, revel, revive. Revive ice. Revive ice. Revive ice, carbon, ammonite, ice. Carbon, ammonite, fireball, ice. Carbon, ammonite, fireball, ice. Ammonite, fireball, ice. Fireball, ice. Fireball, ice. Ice, ice. Ice, silent, silent ice. Silent ice star. Ice star ocean. Star ocean. Star ocean suspended. Star ocean suspended. Star suspended. Suspended star. Star sequence. Star sequence revive. Revive sequence. Revive sequence, contour, structure, crust, underworld. 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 Contour, structure, crust, underworld. Underworld revive. Revive. Revive green. Revive gold. Revive germinal. Revive green. Revive gold. Revive germinal. Germinal. Green. Gold. Germinal. Green. Gold. Green. Gold. Green. Gold. Germinal. Germinal.
That was lovely, Mitch. We had all kinds of portrait films tonight, really, I think. Did you want to say any more, Mitch?
Not really. I mean, I think I've sort of covered it all, to be honest.
Excellent,
Thanks
excellent.
very much
Thank you.
for your reactions.
Where did you get the animation from, actually?
Oh yeah, I got it from oh god, what's it called? Got it written down somewhere. It's one of those free sites, Vimeo, not Vimeo, something that sounds a bit like Vimeo.
Videvo?
Sorry?
Videvo? Videvo?
Hang on, see if I've got it here somewhere. Something like that, yeah. I can't remember exactly, but the moving images are from a free site, and the rest of the one of the images are my own. So I can use both really.
Combination, excellent.
Mm.
So that's the end of the poetry film section. Thanks for everybody for listening, and congratulations again to Lauren. And it is great to see so many people involved in poetry film in Cork and from around the place. I think people are really getting something out of it, and coming up with such imaginative and powerful stuff.
And we should thank Colm. Thank you very much, Colm, for doing all this, and because it was his idea and he did it all and he put a lot of energy and work into it. Thank you very, very much. And
there's only one Colm Scully.
And over to Margaret for the open mic, which she will be facilitating. Do you want to speak with them? You're muted. Margaret. Yeah.
Thanks, Mosa. And thanks, Colm, and everyone for all those wonderful poetry films. Absolutely so entertaining. I agree with Catherine, it's a wonderful night. So if we didn't have COVID, we wouldn't be able to do this. So now I'll take names for the open mic. If you put them into the chat, I'll take them in the order in which they're put in. But because it's 10:20, if I said 3 minutes per person. So, and to start us off, we have Dee Allen. Dee, delighted to have you here tonight. Dee, you're muted. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do one poem for this evening for 3 minutes. And to assist me in this endeavor, I'm going to use the share screen feature. And this poem happens to have 3 pages to it, so be patient with me. Based on actual events, this is called Herbert Spencer Theory. Just when I thought this would be another boring Sunday morning, washing and drying white clothes, the unusual made an intrusion on my life. Upon leaving the coin-op laundrette right next door to the liquor store, same Yemeni owners, I made my way crossing MacArthur Boulevard, eyes toward home. My neighbor's dented silver van was parked halfway in a driveway, rear half in the street with its driver. My anti-poverty activist, blonde, thin Puerto Rican neighbor, in wide-eyed excitement, summoning me closer to the unusual. 2 birds, brown hawk and gray pigeon, struggled in the dust, one forcibly pinned down the other. Brown hawk of unknown breed, unlike the red tails seen in my part of northern Cali. Overpowered, gray pigeon, city scavenger bird, struggled under hawk's weight, squirmed in talon's vice-like grip. Movement ceased in pigeon prey. Brown hawk, predator spread bold wings, flew away to the north of us, lifted and carried its dying prize. Animal scenes that look so unusual to humans are all too common in the wild. My neighbor is a big believer in the West African Ifa faith, and she insisted what we saw was a message from Eshu, a sign of something ominous to come. Was it a message? Was it a sign? I'm agnostic. I don't take stock in such signs. What happened to that Poe pigeon was Herbert Spencer theory in action. Survival of the fittest, as in, only the strong will survive this dangerous world. The weaker won't. And that poem was called Herbert Spencer Theory, which appears in the new issue of Synchronicity Literary Magazine, Volume 3, Issue 3. From this mic to your ears, I'm Dee Allen. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, Dee, as always. Wonderful stuff. Now, anyone else that wants to say a poem in the open mic, your own or somebody else's, please put your name in the chat. Now, next we have Mags Creedon. Mags, you're muted.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I thought there was somebody ahead of me. Right, I'll read the one we were doing yesterday for our little prompt, which is silence. And it struck me that silence is always so glamorous and elegant, and so meant to be so still, but it can be a very harsh word as well, and it has many very dark contexts. So it's a free verse really. Sound the void, plumb the depth, for silence comes in many forms, some in fear, in threat. Cunis, bark for radio silence. Whisht, zip it, and feel the switch of the perch. Omerta, buy it, or sleep deep with the fish. Aching maw of aged house arrest. Empty, it may scream of years in solitary protest. The painful choke of broken trust, yet silence of companions' trust. No need of words, being here's enough. Wordless vows, oh brother, sister, in eternal silence trust. Yet wordless choir of faithful servants, omertas corralled around in circles. Shh. In silence, night creatures hide in darkness, in burrows, escape the urban razzle. In pureness, calme et tranquille, find solace, the quiet silken peace. So many voices, so many silences, some close and quiet, some harsh and distant. Sound the void, plumb the depth, for silence comes in many forms, in fear and threat. In your words, only audible in silence, suspended in the zoneless timeless. In suaveness, hear the silly silkness, and in the theatre of the multiverse, quiet, and action. That's it.
Thank you, Mags. I love the use of the word omerta. Silence is such a deep subject, and
thanks
that's
for the
lovely.
prompt. Prompt was broken trust and silence, and I like to combine the prompts.
Lovely.
Thanks for the inspiration.
Next we have Nick Smith. Nick is the founder of Deborah's Spoken Word. So without him, but for him, we would not be here. So Nick.
Can you hear me all right? You can hear me all right, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I must say, Deborah's Spoken Word is in great hands at the moment.
Oh, thank you.
So fair play to you ladies, doing a brilliant job. So yeah, this is a poem I wrote ages ago. It's in memory of a lady who lived alone in Union Hall, or near Union Hall, and died in a fire in her cottage. This is going back a few years. In this poem I called it Kalama, but that's not her proper name, so it's slight anonymity. And it's called Middleman. Kalama died of fire in her cottage near the harbour. The kindling man had delivered to her days before the conflagration, no charge, a kindness to impress his lover. He returned a week later to her acrid ruin, Timbers charred, rafters collapsed at obscene angles, exposed nails. Ash clung to his boots like a swarm of dead bees. He stayed a few moments, his back to the refuge, felt Kalama present, projected before him on a film of gossamer. She was not changed, sallow and unwashed, eyes maudlin, the remaining teeth painted nicotine, odour of burnt toast. He held her for a moment, familiar, but she vanished, quick, a stifled breath. He knew he should not be surprised. He had in the past provoked souls from unbeckoned quarters, touching occult, at whose behest he was unsure. Motives cauterized, he squinted across the lagoon to an horizon pincered between the bluffs. No witness save her passing whisper. Your worlds are too full of words and worry. Shh. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Absolutely beautiful words. And so very, I think, heartbreaking and heart-rending when you think of that poor woman. Now, the next person I have here is Mosa Jacobs herself. Mosa is like the person that has organized all this and does all the technical work and huge background stuff and all the wonderful interviews.
Too much honor, Margaret. There is a team of us, although some of us go gallivanting in the city sometimes. Not me, not me. Okay, this is just one little poem. It's called Tough Love. To grieve or not is quite the question. Should be on everybody's lips. Kingdoms have toppled over this. It's the stuff that bullets are made of, and H-bombs, howitzers, stone axes, grinding away on collective shoulders. I see the tunnel, not the light. The child's locked in a cage inside, afraid to run, too scared to hide. Frozen, still waiting for the other shoe to pulverize her tender hide. So she forgoes the wildest ride, gaining weight to reach rock bottom, suspended between hell and sky. That's it.
That's absolutely amazing, Mosa. Especially the last line. I love a punchy last line. Suspended between hell and sky. Amazing. Now, next person I have here is Sue Blue, Rosalin.
Thanks. I thought I'd let other people go, but the list wasn't filling up, so I thought I'd just punch in. Anyway, so I think I'd like to do a poem that I only very recently translated. I haven't even tested it in my group yet, so this is the first. And I would like to, it's seasonal, and I would like to do the German version first. And I wrote the original in 1996. It's quite a long time ago. So, okay, here we go. Goldener Herbstgruß. Der rote Kuss des Herbstes haucht zart dir auf die Stirn. In süßer Sehnsucht rufe ich dich, mein Augenstern. Im klaren Licht der Sonne erstrahlt dein schönes Bild. Vor meinem inneren Auge wird auch mein Sinn erhellt. Der blaue Himmel kühlend umfasst die Seele mein und trägt auf seinen Flügeln frei sie zum Herzen dein. Der Lebenshauch des Herbstes küsst fest dich auf die Stirn. In süßer Sehnsucht grüße ich dich, mein Augenstern. So very romantic and traditional. So this is the English version. Golden autumn greeting. The carmine kiss of autumn blows softly on your brow. I call in my sweet longing, my shining star to thou. In the clarity of sunlight, your gorgeous image shines before my inner eyesight and also lights my mind. The cool blue sky embraces my soul so far apart and carries on its feathers her freely to your heart. The living breath of autumn, a firm kiss on your brow, I send in my sweet longing, my love, my star to thou.
Wonderful, Sue. Thank you so much. I love the German poem and then the English one, the translation afterwards. I think even though I don't understand a word of German, it just sounds amazing when you speak it. Your voice is made for poetry.
Gorgeous, Sue.
Now the next person here I have is Catherine Ronan. Catherine, of course, is part of the team, the organising team in Debarra's spoken word, and a very valuable contributor.
Thank you, Margaret. What a fantastic night, lads. What a fantastic night. Thank you, Colm, for, I wrote it down earlier, but I didn't say it, and I'm going to say it now. Thank you for your generosity in sharing your ability, time, and talent with us. My poem was published in the Wexford Women Writing Undercover. It's called Escape. Black and white struggle for colour, 7 years old, brave hunter, now it hunts you. Morning orange, barbed wire, sings everywhere with a smile. You will make it. The only bird you could ever draw was you. Fly. I will whisper in your ear every day, sleep in your pocket every night, until you hear me, until you feel 1,000 kisses, until you stand up free.
Lovely.
Thanks, Catherine. Edgy poem. You have a flair for those. I'm not surprised that the Women's Anthology took that on board. Now, next person I have here is Anton Floyd. Anton, you're, yeah.
This is a poem translated from Goethe. It's called An Old Man. It's after Goethe. It's not a pure translation, but Goethe lived, he was a Greek living in Alexandria, and my father was born in Alexandria, so it has those resonances. And it's a little bit moody. So, an old man, behind a tent of newsprint, huddled at the corner table, close to the traffic of coffee cups and politics, an old man sits alone. His eyes see winter in his hands. They despise the blue ridges of his raised veins. Such is the cold, dry misery of age. It wasn't so long ago when he in his strength could argue with the best, when his looks turned heads. But his reasoning then had played him false. Time too, so full of its promises, so well practiced at betrayal. His younger face comes into his mind, mouthing words from a satirical poem, mocking him his prudence, all those days and nights of denial. And so, wearied by these rehearsals of his past, he drains into a sleep, perhaps his last.
Wow. Oh, fabulous.
Beautifully read as well, Anton. That is superb.
Thank you, Margaret.
I have nobody else on the list. Does anyone else have a poem? Or is that our lot for tonight? Yeah, it's our lot, I think. So Mosa, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you everyone. It was a beautiful night and a very colorful and so much variety, which is beautiful. And it's lovely to have visuals as well. And good poetry. Our next guest, I'm proud proud and happy to announce is Catrice Greer. She will be with us on the first Wednesday in November, and that is the 3rd. Just let me check. Yes, at the usual time of 8:30, and we're going. I'm going to interview her next week or so and talk about what we're going to do, what she's going to do, and how we can support that. And well, maybe there will eventually be a live Barras again, but that's a different kettle of fish, I think, because I think I'd love to keep this going as well. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cork Arts Office. Thank you, Colm Scully, because thank you all our special guests, and all our guests are special. And well, see you again, and have a lovely evening or afternoon or morning, wherever you are.
You are. Call us off.
Okay.
It was well, those poems are lovely, Anton. 3 beautiful poems there at the end. No, well done. Lovely.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.